Today's Ask Me Anything goes out to Scott, who says, why do you prefer the smaller pinch collar? I have a 55-pound pit bull that broke loose and went after another dog on our walk. I've decided that this is the only option with her, as she goes nuts at fences with other dogs, etc. Her neck is 17 to 18 inches, so I was thinking I would need the larger size at chewy.com. The large has 3.25 millimeter prongs. I know that, by the way. The small has 2.25 millimeter prongs, and I know that, by the way. The large is for dogs with up to 20-inch necks, and I know that. The small is for dogs with a 14-inch neck. Sizing, this thing is confusing. What does the size of the prongs affect, and do people buy the collars too small and then buy extra prongs to make them longer, just so they can have smaller prongs on a larger dog? Yes. The reason I prefer the smaller size prongs is because they bite a little bit better. They fit a little bit better because the prongs are smaller, so it gives me a better incremental sizing on the dog's neck because I want it to sit snugly. I have never personally used the large size prongs on even dogs at 100 something pounds. I've never used them. I always use the mediums for those larger dogs. Now, if your pit is 55 pounds, Goofy is 65 pounds, and I use the small size prongs on him. I add the extra links to get that to happen. That being said, if you're looking at a dog such as your dog who has some aggressive tendencies and might become dangerous if you broke off of his prong collar, I would use a backup collar. I always recommend using a backup collar, and if you watch my prong collar videos, you'll see that I always advocate doing that. So I would really suggest that you consider a strong backup collar option which could be something like a chain collar to protect another dog. This is really imperative if you're going to do this kind of training. It's really, really important. But the smaller prongs might break, they might bend, they might come undone, anything like that might happen, but I think you will gain a more effective control over the dog and a more effective use of the tool by using the smaller prongs. And that is why I use the smaller prongs on the collars. And by the way, visit my Amazon store and get the proper collar that I'm recommending to you, because you might, if you just order it willy-nilly online, you might get a cheaper version. Why a choke chain instead of a leather or fiber choke collar? I've used a leather one with my Roddy and it's great. I don't know. I never said that. I mean, I like the chain because I think it lasts longer. I think it's a cleaner collar. It's easier to keep clean. I've used them forever. I've used rope collars before, rope type chains, and they work just as well. But they get dirty. They break down. They can get little fraying and stuff like that, and that might make it more dangerous. But whatever kind of collar you want to use, it's fine. Like I said, I would probably say it's a habit because of cleanliness and because of safety. Those would be my only two reasons. Other than that, who cares what you use? It's your decision. You have that right. You can make any decision you want, and I'll support you. Why are dogs aggressive on leash towards other dogs, but not that way off leash? And how can I correct this behavior? And that, Paul, is a brilliant question. What I'm going to answer for you. The reason dogs become aggressive on a leash that are not aggressive off leash is because what we call the fight or flight mechanism in a dog. So when a dog is off leash, they know they can get away. There's no pressure on their neck, nothing holding them back or holding them in the situation they're in. A dog believes that when they feel that pressure on the neck, even though they're creating it, they're pulling forward into that pressure, they feel they can't get away. They have not learned the escape path to back up and get away from that pressure, because people always teach the dog to get away on a tight leash. So the dog is on a tight leash, and if you watch any of my videos in my member section or on YouTube, you'll see that when there's pressure on that leash, when you start pulling the dog back, the dog goes deeper and deeper into the fight because they don't think they can get away. They think they're being manipulated within the pressure, within that fight. The only way we can get the dog out of that situation is to pop them out of it. So we pop the leash becomes loose, the dog can look around and make a decision to get away from the situation that's causing them grief. That cannot happen on a tight leash. And that is why the dog thinks when the leash is tight, there's pressure, I can't get away, I need to fight to save my life, to protect myself. You must teach the dog leash pressure. You must teach the dog pops on a leash to get the dog to reassemble their thought process, to know that they can get away from that situation. And it's not hard to do, but it takes understanding of how to get the dog to rethink the position they're in, that they don't think they're trapped, that they don't think that they're in fight mode, that they still have the ability to flight and to move away from the pressure. Thank you for the training videos on YouTube. I have a 10-month-old Labrador and I can't get him to stop jumping on visitors. He gets super excited when he sees people and starts to jump on them. How do I train him to stop jumping? Your feedback will be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So first of all, I probably didn't get to this in time because I don't get to these questions very quickly. They run amok and sometimes end up backlogged. But the way we stop dogs from jumping is we correct the behavior in two ways. One, we don't allow it to fester, to become a behavior by putting the dog in a crate or keeping the dog on a leash and not letting the dog reinforce a negative action. In other words, if the dog is just running up to people and jumping and the people are pushing it down and you're yelling at the dog, that's an interaction in and of itself that the dog is getting a reward out of. And you don't want the dog to get a reward out of these things. So my opinion is put the dog in a crate, put the dog in a down, put the dog in a place command, put the dog into a position of obedience and keep your interactions short with other people. Also, tell people not to talk to your dog, not to touch your dog, not to look at your dog, because that in and of itself is a way that the dog will see an engagement and will try to push through that engagement into some kind of a behavior of playing or interacting. And that's what you don't want the dog to do. Have the dog sit, meet somebody, hi, nice to see you, walk away. Do it as an exercise. Set the dog up for success and you'll have a successful dog. Got a question? Ask me anything. Also, be sure to check out my online dog training at robertcabral.com for the very, very best dog training available anywhere.